Hi everyone! Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hello! My name is Caroline and I make sewing tutorials and sewing patterns to help you along your sewing journey. Now, if you've been here for a while, you know that I'm from Brazil and we're actually going through a very hot beginning of summer. But according to YouTube, most of you guys that watch me are actually from the Northern Hemisphere. So even though it's really hot, I thought about mixing it up a little bit and making some more colder weather appropriate tutorials. Almost a year ago, I got fabric to make a hoodie and I never really got to make it. And even though it might take months for me to be able to wear it, I think it might be fitting to make one right now given the circumstances. And it's also a very quick project. It's not that difficult to make, so I think even if you might not be super experienced, you can definitely follow along. I'll show you how to make the pattern from scratch and how to sew it. Since it's a simple and loose fitting garment, I feel like if you already have a hoodie at home that you really like the fit, you can totally trace it on a piece of paper and use that as a pattern and just follow along for the sewing instructions. But if you're also interested in it, I can totally work on a PDF pattern to add to my shop, so let me know in the comments. But I'll show you how you can draft it from scratch. My intention is to make mine with more of an oversized look, but I'll show you how to make the base of a pattern for a more slim-fitted, normal-fitting hoodie, and then alter the pattern to make it more oversized. The sewing part is the same for both, so don't worry about that. I have 1.5 meters of fabric here, but my fabric is really wide, like 180 centimeters wide, which is important to mention because the wider the fabric, the more pattern pieces you can fit side by side. I think that amount is more than enough to make an oversized version for myself, but if your fabric is not as wide as mine, or if you need to size up many times, you're probably gonna need more fabric than that. For the cuffs and the waistband, I'm gonna use the same fabric, but if you wanna use proper fabric for that, I do not remember the name in English. I'm gonna search and put it up here. You can totally do that. And before we go to pattern making, we actually need to take some measurements of our body. So take your measuring tape, a paper, and a pen, and let's take some notes on what you need. First, you need to know your bust circumference. And you need to decide how long you want your hoodie to fit. Measure from your shoulder all the way to where you want it. And while wearing a sleeveless shirt, measure from your shoulder to where the armhole of that shirt starts. This measurement doesn't really need to be super precise because it's a very loose fitting garment. Measure around your neck as well, your shoulder. And for the hood, measure around your head. And from the middle of your head all the way to your shoulder, like this. Now let's go make the pattern. Start by drawing a vertical line. This should be the total length of the hoodie you want. Draw 2 lines to the side with a 90-degree angle. You can use a book to help you if you don't have this ruler. Mark your bust measurement divided by 4, plus 3 centimeters for ease. Divide the neck by 6 and add 2 centimeters, and mark it down and to the side. Mark your shoulder measurement plus 1 centimeter. From the shoulder mark, lower 3 centimeters and connect it to the neck. Mark the armhole downwards, and I'm connecting the top and the bottom. Draw the circle of the neckline. Divide the armhole measurement by 3 just for guidance. It doesn't have to be perfect. Mark 1.5 centimeters to the inside and draw the curve. The back is basically the same as the front. The only differences are the neckline and the armholes. Instead of lowering the neck divided by 3, just lower 4 centimeters. And instead of entering 1.5 centimeters for the curve of the armhole, enter only 0.5 centimeter. The cool thing is that this space right here can be used to make a t-shirt as well if you want. I won't be making mine with a front zipper, but if that's what you want for your design, you have to make a facing. So you can mark 5 centimeters or around 2 inches all around and connect this part right here with a slight curve. The facing will be a separate pattern piece, so you have to copy that to another piece of paper. And when you sew the jacket, you place the zipper in the middle of the facing and the outside layer. And you do the same thing for the back. 5 centimeters here, 2 inches. And this will be a separate pattern piece. But if you don't want to make one with a front zipper, you have to make sure that the neckline is wide enough to fit around your head, because usually fabrics that you use for hoodies, they do not stretch that much, so they have to be a little bit loose around your head measurement. So measure it around the neckline And don't forget to multiply the result by 2 because these pattern pieces are only half of the bodice. The number you get needs to be at least the same, but preferably bigger than your head circumference. So open it as much as you need and redraw the neckline until it's the right fit. For the sleeve, I have a full tutorial on how to make a sleeve to fit any garment. I'll link it in the description. Now let's alter it to be a bit oversized. I'll start by lowering the shoulder line. I'm making my shoulders 20 centimeters long in total, so I'm extending it around 8 centimeters. Check how much the shoulder line lowered in comparison to the original. My distance was 3 centimeters. To avoid any fit issues, you have to lower at least this measurement at the armhole opening. To make the fit looser on me, I'm also widening the bodice 2.5 centimeters or 1 inch. Now redraw the armhole. It doesn't need to be super curved. And you can do the exact same thing to the back. The only difference between the front and back pattern pieces are the necklines. For the pocket, I just drew the shape according to a hoodie I had at home. The measurements are 11 centimeters at the top, 20 centimeters at the bottom, 8 centimeters at the side, and the diagonal line ended up being 15 centimeters long. I added 1 centimeter seam allowance around all edges, but I made the diagonal one with 2.5 centimeters or 1 inch. And when you cut the seam allowance for the diagonal one, you have to make sure you're folding it beforehand. For the bottom hem, I'll make mine 7 centimeters wide. So I folded a piece of paper and I drew a rectangle that has the width of the bottom of the hoodie. So since it's a half pattern piece, measure the bottom and multiply it by 2. I'm also taking in a little bit at the folded edge, like 2 centimeters at each side. Now the sleeves. For the oversized version, you don't need a basic sleeve, but it's good to have it as a guide. Since I already have one, I'll be using it. I'm only copying half of it, and you have to lower here the same amount that you added to the shoulder length. Draw a line to the side with the same length as the armhole opening, and you need to draw a slightly curved shape like I did here. The wrist measurement I'm using is 17 centimeters, and the vertical line should be as long as your arm. Now connect the side. For the sleeve cuff, I did the same thing as the hem, but it's 5 centimeters long and the width is the total wrist opening, so in my case, 17 times 2. I also took in 2 centimeters on each side to make it angular. For the hood, measure the vertical distance between the front and back neckline. Also measure the curves of the neckline so we know the total measurement. Let's call it the neck hole measurement. Draw a vertical line with the hood height we got. I'm adding 5 centimeters to that measurement or 2 inches for an extra ease. At the top, mark half the head circumference plus 5 centimeters, and at the bottom draw a line with the total neck hole measurement. Upwards mark the vertical difference from the front and back neckline heights, and here mark the measurement from the front neckline only. Mark 1.5 centimeters upwards and connect it with a curve. Mark 10 centimeters from each side here as a guide and connect it with a curve. Lower 1.5 centimeters here at the front and connect it with a curve. Measure the total measurement of the bottom. It needs to be the same as the neck hole opening. In my case, I want the hood to be overlapped at the center, so I'm adding 2 centimeters here and connecting it to the top. I added 1 centimeter all around for seam allowance and 2.5 centimeters at the center seam. Don't forget to fold the center seam allowance before cutting. In the end, you're going to need to cut 1 front on fold, 1 back on fold, 2 hems for the hoodie, 1 front pocket on fold, 2 sleeves on the fold, 2 hoodies, and 4 cuffs for the sleeves. I have already cut down all of my pieces and I'm gonna start by assembling the hood together. We just have to sew it right sides together around the curved part. And after that, we just fold the straight part and hem it. And then we can start assembling the front. I'm going to sew the front pockets to the front bodice. You just have to hem the front pockets before, sew 2 rows of stitches. and then place it at the center of the front. Now that I've placed the pocket, I'm going to sew here at the top, at the sides, and at the bottom. I'm only going to do one row stitching this time, really close to the edge. Now place the back and the front right sides together and sew at the shoulders. The sleeves don't really have a difference between front and back, so mark the center and attach it to the armhole. I'm gonna place them right sides together like this and stitch from the waist to the wrist. Now place the hem and cuff pieces right sides together and sew at the sides. Open the seam and fold it. I made a mistake with the wrist cuffs. You're not supposed to cut 4, you're just supposed to cut 2, and instead of sewing 2 to each other, you only need 2, and you just have to sew them right sides together at the side. Now let's sew it to the hoodie. Because of my little mistake, I ended up taking in 2 centimeters at the cuff, so it's gonna be a little bit tight. But I'm going to gather it slightly here just so it can fit. It's gonna be a little bit like this, but it's okay. It still fits through my hands. I'm not gonna do it because of the pins, but it still fits through my hands, so it's fine. You just have to put it like this. And I'm going to match the seam here. You just pin it all around and sew it. And now just do the same thing to the bottom. Match the side seams, pin all around, and sew. Now all there's left to do is add the hood. I'm gonna cut the middle of the back. And I'm gonna match your right sides together with the middle of the hood. And spread it all around. And as you can see, I'm overlapping a little bit in the middle of the front, as I said I was gonna do. And I'll just sew it all around. So what did you guys think? I think it's actually a very simple project to make. I was able to finish sewing everything in just a few hours. And the really cool part about making it yourself is that you can just adjust it however you want. Since I'm really tall, usually hoodies, when I fold my arm a little bit, they show my wrist. So it was nice to make this one to measure to fit me properly. If you make it at home and you feel like sharing, don't forget to tag me on Instagram because I would honestly love to see it. And also, if you'd like me to work on a PDF pattern, let me know in the comments. But this is it for today's video. I really hope you guys liked it. And if it was helpful to you in any way, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe if you haven't already. I hope to see you guys on my next tutorial as well. Bye!